Well, when we first moved into the house, we noticed that the insulation was not in very good shape. Some of the roof was insulated, some of it wasn't. So one of the first things we did was we re-insulated the whole house with cellulose-based blow-in insulation. So that went into the eaves, it went into the floor between the second floor and the attic. So the attic isn't insulated, but underneath that it is. They did some work around actually they did some work in the basement as well, around the point where the house is sitting on the ground, so the upper part of the cellar, and just made it a much more heat efficient building than it was before. So that made a big difference. We heat with wood, and I would say that we noticed straight away that it's hard to know exactly because from year to year it varies, but we suddenly were using a lot less wood than we were before. And after the insulation was done, we also noticed that the heat was retained much more evenly through the house. So whereas before, if you were sitting in one of the corner rooms of the house, it might be quite cold there, even if it was warm in the middle of the house when the wood stove was on. Now it's warm really throughout the house. So it made a pretty noticeable immediate difference.
The hot water system, that's something that we just did last year actually.
There were a lot of incentives to put in solar hot water to make it financially more feasible to do it. And when my wife and I looked at the figures, we came to the conclusion that if we took out one of these low interest loans to put in the system that was being offered, there was a chance that the monthly interest payment we would make on the loan would actually be fairly equivalent to what we were paying in electricity for hot water anyway. So we actually came to the conclusion that from an economic point of view, it made a lot of sense to do this. So we went ahead and did that. We took out a loan and we put the panels on the roof. This was last summer. The hot water system, it feeds into the existing hot water system. So it's not that all of our water is now heated by the solar panels. The solar panels feed into the existing electric system. So depending on the time of day and the time of year, they're contributing either more or less to the system. I mean, over the last few months with snow on the roof, there's been a period over the winter where it hasn't been doing anything. Now it's operational again. So on a day like today where it's quite warm and sunny, those panels are probably producing all the hot water we need. At night, obviously, or in the winter when there's snow on the roof, it's not working at all. So overall, the estimate we were given was that it might produce about 2/3 of our hot water in the course of a year. It's been too soon though for us to really know whether that's the case or not. But yeah, I mean it's definitely nice to have that and know that a lot of our hot water is now coming from solar energy rather than electricity.
Why was it important to you?
Well, regardless of whether the economics had meant it was going to be cheaper or not, my wife and I felt that it was very important to do this. We wanted to really try and remove as much reliance on fossil fuel from our lives as possible. And the electricity coming to the house is obviously coming from the grid and is coming from whatever the power companies producing it are doing to produce it. So if we could replace some of that with solar to heat our water, we really like the idea of doing that. So we were committed to really going ahead with it. Although, as I say, at the end of the day, I think probably it makes economic sense for us to do it as well. I mean, our location, the house behind us here, is not actually a particularly great location for solar power. It's probably only about 70% efficient compared with some locations. We also took down part of a tree in the backyard to make it a little bit more efficient than it was. So we're very much committed to the idea. It does, I mean, we do need to vary what we do a little bit to make it work really efficiently. For example, in terms of washing clothes or running dishwasher or something like that, we'll quite often wait until a warmer part of the day, the afternoon maybe, to run it rather than maybe running it first thing in the morning. So we try and adapt our behaviour a little bit to take most advantage of when there's hot water being generated by the panels. Other than that, it hasn't sort of changed our life much. It's just there in the background contributing to the hot water